Great. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Chris Hintz. I am a Director of Product Marketing and Solutions. I tend to specialize on the wireless portion, and I've got James Allen with me.
Good morning or afternoon.
Yes, depending on where you're listening to this, and he's kind of the wired guy. And between the two of us, we really form the secure access piece, and we're going to take you through what secure access and branch means here at Fortinet. So secure access lives in what we consider the secure infrastructure. And the idea of secure infrastructure is extending the security that Fortinet is known for out to the access layer itself. So the common products that you see us talk about and that we will be talking about in this particular webinar today are the FortiGate, because obviously it forms the hub of everything that we do around security, and then the FortiAP and the FortiSwitch, and how all of this can simplify your operations and make things a lot better as you install your wired and wireless networks with top-notch security. Now, the way that we deliver upon this is what we call security-driven networking. The idea of this is converging security and network access into one holistic whole. So what we've seen historically at Fortinet is that people tended to build a network and then they try to bolt on security as an afterthought. They try and they jam, say, a firewall in here, there's some other security product in there, in a desperate attempt to secure what they had already built. What Fortinet believes is the right thing is to actually start with a strong foundation of security and then build the network within that integrated security framework. This is a very unique architecture. You can basically add components in as needed because it's all within that same framework. And you can simplify management and licensing immensely by all existing within what we call our Fortinet security fabric. It also helps with lower overall cost, as you'll see as we talk throughout this presentation. Now, you may have noticed that this was called Secure Access and Secure SD-Branch. So what's the difference? Well, Secure Access really looks at all of the access equipment. Primarily, that's FortiAP and FortiSwitch, which are powered by our FortiLink protocol, which we'll hear a bit about today. But it also includes all the ancillary products that are part of Secure Access. FortiExtender, which is our WAN connectivity offering that can also be managed by a FortiGate. It includes FortiWLM, which is our large-scale RF management platform. It includes our cloud-based management for FortiAP and FortiSwitch, as well as our present analytics.
Yeah, Chris, and also just to add on to that bottom one, we definitely would be remiss if we didn't call out the FortiGate Cloud as well, which offers the opportunity for you to be able to manage both the switch and AAP through the FortiGate in the cloud. But in addition, the difference there between that and Secure SD-Branch is, as Chris mentioned, this includes all the access equipment. Well, now you actually include FortiGate SD-WAN. You also include FortiNAC, and you also include FortiManager, FortiAnalyzer to provide that single pane of glass management for larger deployments. Now, also important to note that FortiClient and FortiVoice and FortiCamera are also part of extended Secure SD-Branch. And SD-Branch is treated as a use case for those of you who are familiar with our Secure SD-WAN solution. It's focused as a use case within Secure SD-WAN. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges that our customers are really facing at the access layer? What Chris and I have seen in speaking to many of our customers is that they're all trying to deal with the increase in the number of devices that are coming onto their network, wired and wireless. They're also trying to address security concerns. The threats have become more complex, the breaches have become more common. They're looking for solutions that are going to offer them security as close to the edge as possible. And then lastly, they're looking for management, management improvements. They've got multiple management consoles they're trying to deal with. Qualified personnel is scarce and expensive, so they're looking to be able to address that. Next slide. The impacts of these challenges are increased pressure and lower performance on both the wired and the wireless networks, which drive the need to try to refresh that technology. Chris mentioned bolt-on security solutions where, you know, a lot of different vendors will look at trying to just add security as an afterthought after the design has been made. And then, of course, complex management, where you've got a variety of different consoles. It increases the time of resolution. It makes your IT personnel need to be experts in multiple different vendors. Next. What we look to do to address those concerns and what products within the Fortinet portfolio specifically address these concerns are our FortiGate appliances. There's over 17 models of these appliances, next generation firewall, wireless LAN controller, switch controller. Our access points, there's over 30 models of access points, suiting basically almost any need out there, from high-end 4x4 access points all the way to little wall plate access points. Again, no licensing required there. And of course, switches, we've got over 30 actually at this point, edge switches, top of rack switches, all of them support FortiLink, which I'll explain a little bit further on in this presentation. And we have both layer 2 and layer 3 capable switches. Next slide. So what is the value of secure access to a Fortinet partner? Because I do believe, both Chris and I do believe, that we want to make sure you understand why would you be going through and taking the time to go through this enablement and so on and so forth. Well, FortiGate is the most deployed firewall in the world. We ship thousands of these units every quarter. Okay, secure access has been an extremely effective cross-sell, upsell opportunity. So if you've already positioned FortiGate and you're looking at, okay, I want to be able to go out and talk to this customer again, find out how things are going, see if there's additional opportunity there. This is a great position to either start with or come back and revisit. It increases their value in their FortiGate investment by offering the benefit of consolidation through the convergence of services. Every FortiGate ships with the ability to be able to manage switch and AP. So you're going in there being able to offer a benefit to them, and it can significantly increase the value of your FortiGate next generation firewall opportunity. Instead of just selling the gate, you're actually selling the network that the gate is looking to protect. Next slide. Now, what's the value of SD Branch in contrast to a Fortinet partner? This is the hottest market in the networking industry, okay? Secure SD-WAN is a feature of our FortiGate and is included in FortiOS, very similar to FortiLink and the management of switch and AP. So the benefit of Secure SD-Branch is that it increases the customer value by, again, offering the benefit of consolidation through the convergence of services. So Secure SD-Branch, again, offers those hardware and services beyond the FortiGate, capturing more of your customer spend, because what you're finding is that when they update the WAN edge, they're not just going to update that router, they're going to update that location. So giving you the opportunity to be able to position and increase the value of your secure SD-WAN opportunity upwards of 3x.
So let's go through some of the use cases for secure access as a whole. Now, we talked about SD-Branch being one of them, but that's not the only one. If we look at where this can be used, it can pretty much be used in a wide variety of cases, from the campus to SD-Branch, which we mentioned, and even teleworkers. So I'm going to dive through each of these in turn, with a particular focus, of course, on SD-Branch. Again, as we mentioned, all of this is enabled by FortiLink. FortiLink is what's going to allow all of these use cases to function at a high level. So let's dive into FortiLink before we get too deeply into the use cases. So what is FortiLink? At the end of the day, it's really a proprietary protocol by Fortinet that allows the FortiGate to directly interact with, manage, and secure the access level equipment, aka the FortiSwitch and the FortiAP. Now, what this effectively means to an end customer is switches on the front of a FortiSwitch and SSIDs being supplied by a FortiAP have the same security policies and are just as secure as a port on the front of the FortiGate. In fact, for those of you familiar with the FortiGate and how it functions, switch ports and SSIDs will show up in the FortiGate interfaces menu just like any other FortiGate interface. And that, of course, drives the simplicity. Your customers do not need to figure out another UI. This isn't a whole separate area within FortiOS that has to be learned. It's integrated into the whole. By investing the time and energy to learn the FortiGate, they've effectively learned how to manage their access layer. It's a very flexible architecture, as James talked about, with the variety of models of switches, gates, and APs. You can flexibly deploy just about any scenario. And we have a much lower cost of ownership. This access management is included and boiled into FortiOS, running on that FortiGate. There's no additional licenses required to enable this. So let's start with campus networking. Now, what could this look like? One possibility is that you have distributed internal segmentation FortiGates throughout your deployment, and that those are individually managing the chunks of the network that they apply to. There could be additional FortiGates present in the data center as data center firewalls, and typically we'd have FortiManager, FortiAnalyzer used in like the NOC SOC to aggregate all this and give us the single pane of glass management to make this easy and simple for that person to manage. Another possibility is that you consolidate all of your control into, say, a pair of redundant FortiGates with high availability. And then there could be additional FortiGates present at specific locations for the internal segmentation, but maybe you're going to have all of your access layer management directly on one high availability pair. Either of these architectures work, and the flexibility that we just talked about and the way that FortiLink enables you to mix and match means that customers have the freedom to deploy and manage the way that makes the most sense to them.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And what we're going to do here is kind of go through the branch use case, secure SD branch use case. Next slide, please. So really, this applies to the distributed enterprise. And the distributed enterprise isn't a specific vertical. I mean, obviously people typically think of retail and hospitality, meaning hotels and so on, and restaurant chains. But what we've seen is a great deal of adoption in areas such as K through 12 education, where you have elementary schools or other schools going into district offices, healthcare with clinics and remote clinics, government offices where there may be a centralized say City Hall, but there may be other offices elsewhere, banking. Basically, any business that has more than a couple of sites is going to be interested in the technology that's able to be offered within Secure SD-WAN and Secure SD Branch. Next slide. So why is that, right? What we've seen is that branch networks continue to evolve. And what's really going on is that digital transformation has driven new business requirements, hybrid cloud architectures, whether that be Azure or Google Cloud, Alibaba, so on and so forth, and software as a service have changed how businesses leverage their actual networks, both WAN and LAN. And this has driven new initiatives and architecture that leverages the latest technologies and innovations. Next slide. Now, branch enablement, right, is really accomplished through SD-WAN, which facilitates business by providing business outcome-driven WAN connectivity. It's the users and their equipment that create the traffic through their applications that is basically being steered by SD-WAN. So this is what's commonly referred to as the WAN edge. SD branch is the network and the technology necessary to securely handle the business traffic inside the branch, right? So what the users connect to. This is often called the access edge. Next slide. So what is our vision? What are we trying to accomplish with our solution? Our secure SD branch solution is really there to provide a secure, integrated approach to branch networking, right? We see three key components to successful branch networking: security, simplicity, and low total cost of ownership. And what we have seen is that Fortinet's secure SD branch is unmatched in delivering on all three of these components. We are one of the only vendors recognized in all three SD branch related Gartner Magic Quadrants in 2019. We're very proud of that. Next slide. So what is really driving these initiatives, or what is really driving this adoption of secure SD branch and secure SD-WAN? It's really that expansion at the WAN and the access edge. Companies are looking at being able to expand and enable the cloud on-ramp. And what that really means is how am I getting out to the cloud? How can I ensure that my application performance is solid? They're looking at simplifying operations out at the branch. They typically don't have IT out there. And they're looking at how they can address IoT. Next slide. The challenges that they're facing with this new WAN and access edge paradigm is that now each user and device represents an edge that needs to be secure. If you think about it, now we've gone from a scenario where typically the design that you would see, the bolt-on design, would be just to protect the WAN edge, right? Just look at, hey, I'm going to put a firewall there, and that will protect what's coming in and coming out. I'll set policies there. But the problem is that now, with this new type paradigm, my client has a secure tunnel from their device out through the WAN and to the software as a service or to the cloud application that's running out there. It, in essence, is bypassing some of the security that I have in place on the edge. So the need to be able to see within encrypted traffic, the ability to be able to identify applications so you can provide priority and secure them is key. Secondly, complexity. Often with many of these companies, they've had different initiatives that have required that they have different vendors. Each one of those vendors has a different operating system, a different screen that has to be managed, different licensing, which leads to that last piece there, which is cost. Licensing for each one of these, support costs for each one of these. So it's created a challenge in these environments. Next slide. So we've seen an evolution of the WAN edge out at the remote branch. The traditional WAN is too expensive. Go ahead and build that out. SD-WAN does offer cost savings and improvements in application performance, but it lacks security. Secure SD-WAN, which is what we're speaking of within Fortinet, provides superior application experience, visibility, and security. But let's face it, there's still too many additional point products. And what SD-Branch does is it provides an integration of WAN and LAN platforms, extending the secure SD-WAN benefits and features into the network, bridging the WAN edge and the access edge. So with Fortinet Secure SD-Branch, you see that, as we talked about initially, secure access is there to protect the access edge. And one new concept that we are talking about that we haven't addressed before is Fortinet protecting the device edge, providing auto discovery, classification, and security of IoT devices as they enter into the network, increasing the visibility, offering anomaly detection, and you're using the FortiGate as a sensor. No additional hardware is necessary.
Great, thanks for taking us through that, James. I'm going to talk a little bit about the teleworker use case, something that would historically have been thought of being a relatively small portion of what a company might do, which is, for good and for bad, a very big piece of what a lot of people need to do these days. You know, the teleworker reality is a lot of folks may have spotty connectivity at their home. Now, if you've seen our teleworker presentations, you know that to a certain extent, for a sort of low-use employee, you may be able to get by with just a VPN and maybe some two-factor authentication. But for power users, it's often very beneficial to be able to extend the corporate WLAN straight out to the edge. And the nice thing about what Fortinet offers with the FortiAP is any of our AP models can be used for this. You don't need to buy a particular AP to make it work. FortiGate's still going to manage that remotely, even though we tend to think about and talk about FortiLink as though it's sort of a direct connection protocol. It's not. that same FortiLink management logic can extend through the internet. And with the use of things like FortiDeploy to handle zero touch, that employee who goes home doesn't have to really take any action to configure it. He plugs that into the router that he got from his internet service provider. It gets a DHCP address. It's going to immediately look around and say, hey, is there a controller I can see who's going to adopt me? When that doesn't happen, it's just going to reach out to the internet. And it's going to try and find a FortiDeploy server and say, hey, I'm lost. Where should I go? And that can be immediately directed to the managing FortiGates. Lastly, I want to call out, well, usually when we're talking in a corporate setting, we always do a tunneled SSID, meaning that all that traffic comes up to the FortiGate for an inspection. But we do have the ability to do a split tunnel. It's just something that we don't often talk about when we're talking about the campus or the SD branch, because with everything in the branch sort of being localized, split tunnel wouldn't afford you much. But here, it's really critical. General web browsing or accessing, similar to SD branch, accessing maybe some SaaS services from the home just off of an AP, I just want to route that directly to the internet. I don't want to pay the latency price of tunneling it back to the FortiGate first, so I can actually split that. All of my traffic that's headed towards my corporate network will be tunneled straight to the FortiGate. Anything that's not, I can split that off immediately. Now, James, I hear you talking, and that sounds all good. But, what I'm hearing from a lot of customers is they use best-of-breed technology. They don't really see Fortinet as anything other than a security vendor.
Yeah, and I've heard that too, Chris. And as you can imagine, we are known primarily from our security standpoint. But what I would make sure that your customers have an understanding of is that we're recognized across 7 magic quadrants within Gartner. And particularly for this SD branch perspective, we're recognized in the WAN edge, right at the right on the touching the line towards the getting into the leadership quadrant. We're obviously an industry leader and a magic quadrant leader for network firewall. And there's only 4 vendors ahead of us when you start to get into access. So they may not know us, but that does not mean that we are not a strong player in this industry.
Yeah, and I believe we were even a People's Choice, as it were, the Peer Choice Awards thing for even the wireless LAN for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Yeah, the peer reviews, we really highly recommend, you can point your customers out to the peer reviews. Anybody can go in there, and it tells them what people's experiences are with Fortinet's equipment. And yeah, people may not know us on that access edge, but you'll see if you go out there that we're a Customer Choice Awards winner. And that's not us. That is our customers who are putting that in there.
Cool. Yeah, that all sounds great, James. But a lot of times these guys, they're only budgeted. The whole plan was to kick off, say, an SD-WAN initiative. It wasn't to bring in wireless, et cetera. Or maybe they're just refreshing switching. They're not touching firewalls and that sort of stuff now. I mean, that's pretty much a big hurdle for an SD branch opportunity, right?
Yeah, and I would think here, as you're going out and you're talking to your customer, this really comes down to, I mentioned before that a lot of times customers will come in and they'll say to me, okay, I've got a LAN refresh, or I got a wireless refresh, or I got a security refresh, instead of really taking a holistic view. And what we have to do is that we have to communicate that, look, one of the key initiatives that we're seeing is that our customers are looking to try to reduce complexity, try to simplify their operations because they have a centralized IT staff. And what Fortinet allows them to do is to reduce the number of contracts they have, shorten the time to resolution when there's problems that arise, basically create one vendor that can effectively manage security, WAN, and network access through a single interface, and can do so for an extremely competitive price. We're not looking at nickel and diming our customers. the overall TCO, a lot of the licenses you'll find with us are perpetual licenses or no licenses at all in the case of FortiLink.
Yeah, in fact, I think we've heard stories, both of us, about customers who were pleasantly surprised to find that the budget that they had mentally allocated to just do one piece of it could actually cover more pieces when they talk to Fortinet. But,
Yeah,
the cloud's becoming
definitely.
bigger and, the cloud's becoming bigger and bigger. And really, some of these cloud-first companies, you're talking about putting a bunch of equipment into the branch. So do we have anything for them?
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned that early on in the presentation. I brought up the fact that we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up things like FortiGate Cloud and so on. Hardware is always going to be needed. You're going to need a cloud on-ramp, regardless as to what model you begin to look at. Something's got to sit out there at the branch, and your end users have got to connect to some network access. I mean, 5G is not there yet, right? So you're going to need access points. You're going to need switches. And, right now, if you're looking at needing an on-ramp, the FortiGate is a very cost-effective on-ramp that then gives you the ability to be able to also manage your switching and your wireless. So you're going to need equipment. Now, if you want to manage that through the cloud, we absolutely have an option for that. If you want to manage it locally, we have options for that. If you want to manage it through a centralized management console through a NOC, we have an option for that. So we don't want to discourage our customers for looking at that, but we want to make sure they understand they're going to need some type of CPE equipment, some cloud on-ramp, and we have a very cost-effective solution for that is more feature-rich than what you see from other vendors.
Yeah, and I think the really cool thing is, in our case, the equipment itself, the switches, the access points, and the firewall are the same whether you decide to manage those via cloud or via an on-prem appliance or however you want to handle that. So that's really handy because you could even change your mind and you're not doing a rip and replace. But, this feels like now I got to go learn this FortiGate, and gosh, that's a security and appliance. If you're not strong on expertise, is this really the right way to go?
Yeah, I think that's always a concern, right? And if you think about one of the key concerns that we brought up that we're hearing is this whole idea of complexity and the need to centralize IT and so on and so forth. But if you remember, one of the key tenets, one of the key components that we felt was going to be simplicity in a secure SD branch solution. And so we've ensured that the solution is easy to implement and to manage, and it provides you with an opportunity to have a single pane of glass to manage and monitor switching, wireless, SD-WAN, and security. And if you think about it, for those of you out there who are engineers, if you're going to start from, layer 1 or even layer 0, just talking about plugging in the cable, right, you're going to be looking at one device to start your troubleshooting, from whether the link light goes up on the switch port to whether or not they can authenticate against the access point. You're looking into one console to be able to gather all that information. Once you go through, you're just going up the stack. So it simplifies that management. We offer training so you can see for yourself as you communicate this value proposition that we do try to make this as simple as possible to implement and manage.
Thanks so much, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you on future sessions.